Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ManggFood. I am, of course, Mang. I got my brother Lego here, and we're gonna be
Lego.
Yeah, we're gonna be preparing a dish today known as Bourbon Chicken, and Lego will talk about the origins of this dish.
Okay, so I was looking online for a fantastic bourbon dish, but you know what? I don't just like grabbing a recipe online. I like to actually modify it to what I like most people. So what I did was I grabbed a few different recipes, and then I kind of just mixed them together to combine. I've done this 10, 15 times, something like that. So I mixed it just right so that everybody loves it. You know, I've tested it plenty of times over several different groups of people, and I found that this one is kind of our favorite, mostly because it's the sauce. The sauce is absolutely amazing. You're actually using bourbon whiskey, and then what you're going to do is you're going to combine it with a brown sugar, and then you're going to kind of cook off the bourbon so it has a really sweet, authentic taste to it. And so that's kind of what we're going to try today.
Right. And so this is a dish that originated in New Orleans, named after Bourbon Street, and it does prominently feature bourbon whiskey, but we're going to be cooking off most of the alcohol, so all you get left with is that kind of smoky flavor. And we're going to be cooking the chicken, we're going to be making the sauce, we've got rice going, we're going to be doing some vegetables, and it's all going to come together at the end for a lot of goodness. So what's the first step here then?
Okay, the first step that you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure that you secure the rice, okay? Because that is going to take probably the longest, and you really don't want to be cooking rice on the stove. So what we have over here is we actually have a rice cooker. I bought it off an online retailer. It's between $30 to $50. It's really cheap. If you don't eat a lot of rice, I can understand if you don't have one, then you're going to have to learn to do it on a skillet. But if not, get one of these rice cookers. They're absolutely amazing. They're easy. This one just has one button. You put in the water, you put in the rice, you hit the button called cook, and it beeps when it's done. That's all you need. Okay? So you want to make sure you set that up. This is already going, so we're just going to ignore that for now. Okay?
Yeah. So this is going to take how long now from start to finish for the rice?
The rice is going to take about 30 minutes, but usually it depends on how cold of water you use and things like that. It kind of has some sort of internal thermometer, things like that.
And how long is all the rest of the stuff going to take?
Okay, now that depends on what you actually want in it. Okay, we're going to be doing chicken. Okay, we're also going to be doing broccoli, carrots, and water chestnuts. And those are going to be the things that are actually going to be taken. If you have a wok, you're going to have to either individually cook them, or you're going to be cooking them all at once, and you're going to be using whatever takes the longest to cook first. So if you're using really big, thick carrots, you're not going to want to put those in last unless you like eating completely uncooked, raw, chunky carrots.
Right.
So those are the ingredients we're going to be using. We're going to be doing it in a skillet, not on a wok, just because this is how I've always done it, and I feel I'm the most comfortable with it. So we're going to be cooking the chicken first. We're going to put it to the side. Then what I'm going to be doing is actually cooking all the vegetables together. Okay? And I'm going to be cooking those from the largest vegetable to the smallest vegetable, or the longest cooking time to the shortest cooking time. And then we're going to combine it all together with the sauce. Now what makes this tricky is you're going to actually have to cook the vegetables at the same time as the sauce. The sauce is difficult because depending on how long and how much sauce you are cooking, if you double the recipe, triple the recipe, the sauce could take a long time to simmer off because you don't want to cook it too high because it has brown sugar and then you'll burn it and then it'll taste really nasty. If you don't cook it high enough, then the bourbon doesn't get cooked off. So that one is actually going to be taking, you're going to want to make sure that you watch the bourbon. So start the rice and the bourbon immediately. Once the bourbon is done, you can put it to the side. And then really just focus on the other ingredients.
Right. And if you remember, my original question to him was, how long does all the rest of the stuff take?
Okay, it's probably going to take 30 minutes for the rice, and that will be separate from the other stuff. I would say the bourbon is going to take anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes to cook off, because if you don't want it really is depending on how many ingredients you use for the bourbon. And the other stuff, wow, it could take 5 minutes to cook some of the vegetables. It could take 10 minutes to cook some of the vegetables. So it depends on how many vegetables you use. Honestly, depending on how many vegetables you use, it's going to take different times to cook them. So really you just have to know how long it takes to either saute or steam your vegetables. And that's another thing that is
we'll get into that. So bottom line then is it's kind of a juggling act of trying to organize everything so it all finishes balanced, cooked, and at a proper time, right?
I guess what people are probably wondering is when I've done it and I've cooked for between 4 to 8 people, how long does it take me? It takes me 45 minutes to an hour total. That's with all the prep time, getting everything out, cutting all the meat up, and everything together and cooking it, and then cleaning.
So you started the rice already, and yet you haven't done any of that.
Because the rice is easiest. Once the rice is done in the rice cooker, you can just leave it there for as many hours as you want. So that's why I like to get that out of the way so that I can just let it sit. Once that beeps, I can get to it whenever I want.
Alright, so let's get to it then. What's the next step?
Okay, the first thing that I want to do is I like cooking my chicken first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my chicken. Now, I like to use boneless, skinless chicken. You can grab this from any store. Also make sure that...
Any store. You head down to your hardware store, they'll give it to you.
Yeah, I guess any grocery store. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using 2 different... Sorry. Not a lot of working area here. You're going to be using 2 different cutting boards. One for your meat, the other for your vegetables, obviously.
Makes sense, right? Hygiene, very important. You don't want anybody getting sick.
Okay,
so
now,
why don't we bring it in for a close-up then, and so we can go through the whole slicing process.
I agree. Let's do that.
All right.
Okay, so here we have our chicken. Now, my favorite knife to use is one of these, okay? Very sharp, big cleaver. It's easy to just lop off anything that you want. Okay, get rid of all the fat, get rid of all the that white stuff that you really don't need. Don't worry about it throwing away too much unless you are, you're constrained for money and you don't want to waste too much meat. But that fat you really don't need, okay? Now, what you're going to want to be cutting it down to, there's 2 different ways you can do this, okay? You can either cook the entire thing as it is and then cut it down later. Or you can cut it down now, cook it, and then you don't have to cut it. What are the differences? It depends on how you like to cook your meat, okay? If you like to cook your meat whole because you know exactly the internal temperatures and things like that and you're used to, you can either grill this or you can fry it on a pan. Either way is just fine. Obviously, it's going to have a different flavor if you cook it on the grill as opposed to cooking in the skillet. So it just depends on preference. I actually prefer to cook mine whole and then cut it up later. So I'm just going to quickly do this.
I may interject for a moment while you begin. Isn't it the purpose when you're cooking a lot of different ingredients that are all sliced up and combined later, isn't the purpose to really cook them evenly so it's a balanced dish at the end? So you don't have some pieces that are overcooked or undercooked.
Well, yeah, and then I totally agree. And so in that aspect, then if you cook them all whole, they're all going to cook evenly if they're the same size.
Right.
So if you cook it, basically what he's saying is if you cook it in small pieces right away, certain pieces are going to cook faster, and then what you're going to have is certain pieces are going to be burnt, the others are going to be like raw, and then it's just going to be just weird.
I'm off camera because of how this works, but you can hear me. See, the way that stoves work and pans, there's a lot of... the way that heat distributes can be kind of all over the place. The center of the pan can be warmer than the outside or vice versa, things like that. So it can be kind of a challenge to cook a lot of small pieces of food and have them all come out evenly in the end. So at least for the chicken, we're going to try to minimize that problem. Vegetables, we might not get that luxury.
Okay, and there all of our chicken is cooked. So next what we're going to do is we're going to throw them on the skillet and cook them evenly. Okay, so before we actually start the chicken, like I said before, we're actually going to start the sauce because the sauce is probably going to take the longest to cook. And then once you're done with the sauce, you can just put it aside because if it gets a little cool, that's okay. It's going to warm up. You can warm it right back up.
It is cool.
You're going to be able to warm it back up before you combine it with the other ingredients. Okay, so what we have here is we have our ingredients for the bourbon sauce. We have our 6 ounces. This is per serving, so if you want more than 5 chicken breasts, then which is what we're using, then you're going to either double it or triple it, which that would be a large group. But we're going to have 6 ounces of soy sauce, so you can just go ahead and you can put that right into your medium-sized saucepan. Okay, this is what you're going to be using. All right, this is going to have the larger of the saucepan that you use. It's going to cook faster, but then you risk overcooking it and burning the brown sugar. You do not want to burn the brown sugar. So do not go over, I'm going to repeat this several times, do not go over low to medium on your heat.
Now,
Okay?
soy sauce is an interesting inclusion because bourbon chicken is often served in Cajun-themed Chinese restaurants around New Orleans. So you get that kind of French-Chinese influence going all together.
Which is why I think makes this combination such a great combination. Okay? The next thing you're going to add is your bourbon. Okay? So you had your 6 ounces of your soy sauce. You're going to add 3/8 cup of your bourbon. Okay? We used...
So, bourbon. Jim Beam bourbon. Now, bourbon is obviously a pivotal part of this recipe, so you're going to want to get the best bourbon you can get your hands on.
I would not recommend cheap bourbon.
Right. Because, you know, the alcohol we may cook off, but all we really care about is the flavor.
Correct.
Now, bourbon whiskey comes from the Bourbon County of Kentucky, I believe, and it is made from fermented corn.
Did not know that.
Right, because Mang's here with the information for you.
That's why we have Mang.
Right.
Okay, so 3/8 cup bourbon. I'm going to pour that right in. Okay. The side. Then we have 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. Throw that right in. Okay. Then we have 2 tablespoons per serving of dried minced onions. You can actually use real onions if you wanted to, or the equivalent of the wet minced onions in that little cup, the little whatever it's called. I know what it is, but it's the wet kind. You can use that. You throw that right in, and then a half a teaspoon of the garlic powder. Okay, and this is really an interesting combination, just there because they're already adding a good spices. Your sauce is going to be the best tasting out of the entire recipe. If you mess up the sauce, I mean, you can overcook the chicken a little bit, undercook the chicken. Well, you don't want to undercook the chicken.
No, you don't.
No, you don't want to do that. That's bad. But if you overcook the chicken, I mean, you'll still have the awesome flavor of the bourbon sauce, and that's what you want. And then what you're going to do is I actually added more brown sugar to this recipe because I felt that adding more brown sugar gave it a much sweeter taste, because I'm not so much of a hit you over the head with the alcohol flavor. And although you do cook off most of it, you want a little bit there because that's what gives it its flavor.
Sugar.
Yes, so brown sugar, I'm actually using a full cup of brown sugar.
Right. Now, you watch any kind of professional cooking show that is not ManggFood, they're always going to tell you to use fresh ingredients, spices, all that kind of stuff, garlic, onions. I'm not going to tell you that because, frankly, we don't really care. So, but you would agree that it probably would give you a better flavor.
Of course it would. But you know what? Not everybody is able... Listen, the more complicated that you make a recipe, it becomes cost averaging, as in how much time is it worth putting in to get a delicious meal? I mean, okay, you could make it that much more delicious, but then if you don't want to do it, does it really matter then?
That's right, and that's why I never cook. But we skimp like these to get kind of close to the epic flavor.
Correct. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn your burner on to a low to medium. I'm actually going to set mine between 4 and 5. This is out of 10. And I'm going to start letting that go. And now what I'm going to do is, in a while, what you're going to see is it's going to start bubble. Okay, and that's good. That's the alcohol burning off. It's not boiling, per se. But what it is going to do is it's going to start cooking out the oil, and that's what you want. Okay, and over there is the sign that our rice is done.
Oh, I thought that was a smoke detector.
So what we're going to do now is it's warm and off. So now we just let it sit there until we're ready to use it. Okay,
right.
So we're going to let that go. And the next thing that we're going to go on to...
Well, for the sauce, let me ask you a question here.
Go ahead.
Now, as far as sauces go, especially French-oriented sauces, this one's pretty light on the inclusions. Just a few different spices, brown sugar, and a couple liquids. Now, do you think you would ever try adding more spices to this, or is the flavor already heavy enough?
Well, I mean, see, what I did is I went heavy on the brown sugar because I love that sweet flavor on the bourbon chicken. That's what I love. So I actually did add more spices. I just added it on the spice that's already in there.
So you're tailoring it to your taste.
Correct.
The chef's taste. But if you wanted to make it spicier, you could add stuff like that, or more of an herbal taste or something like that.
Correct. I mean, it's totally modifiable. I mean, it's just find a bunch of different recipes, bourbon sauce, or if you know what's, ingredients that are in bourbon sauces that you like, you can try adding those.
All right, very good. let's move on.
Okay, so the next thing now we're going to do is we're definitely going to get started with our chicken. Now, for the sauce, the oil that I like to cook with, I actually like to use, olive oil. It doesn't have, I don't know, I would, see now, if you use the extra virgin olive oil, it's going to burn faster, but that'd be really, really hot. I mean, what does extra virgin olive oil burn at, like 450 or something like that?
I am not a scientist.
Okay, but what you can use is you can use olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. You can even use vegetable oil. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on how health conscious you are. Okay?
Okay.
So what I'm going to use is I'm actually going to go with the vegetable oil.
Not the extra virgin olive oil.
Not the extra virgin olive oil. Because I think the vegetable oil has a higher burning point. So I mean, it depends on how...
planning on cooking this very high temperature?
Well, I mean, you do want a good sear. And so when I go to sear it, I don't want it to start burning the oil.
Okay.
Okay. So what we're going to put on is probably going to put on just a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons, depending on how much oil you like to use. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let this heat up. And then when we come back, once it's all hot, we're going to throw the chicken on. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we are going to cut our carrots. And the reason I'm cutting my carrots is because I wanted smaller carrots to match the cooking time of the broccoli. So I'm going to put them in together for the sake of convenience and cook them at the same time. Okay, so I'll simply just put these on a nice cutting board. As you can see, I am using a separate cutting board. And our ingredients that we're actually going to use is we are cutting out the water chestnuts for the sake of time and convenience. If you want to add water chestnuts, you can buy them already cut in little slices, and then you can just throw them in and cook them on their own or with the other vegetables. And how large am I cutting? Well, it depends on how large your broccoli is. Okay, so based on how large my broccoli is, I'm actually going to cut them just about this size. And I think that this will do perfectly fine for the size and how they're going to be related into cooking with the broccoli. You don't want your vegetables soggy, unless you like soggy vegetables. That's fine. I like a little crunch on my vegetables, and since I'm going to be more sauteing and steaming them, it's going to be harder to actually get that crunchy flavor if I overcook them. Okay? So I'm going to make sure that I don't cut them too small, all the same size, and then what I'm going to do is just put them to the side in the bowl.
And what is the technical term for this cutting method here?
The technical term is cutting the vegetable.
All right, you heard it here first.
Well, this is ManggFood, right? Basically a video for people who do not like to cook food or don't know how to cook.
I don't think I ever stated that.
Okay, and there is your bowl of carrots. Now, we chose 4 servings, so what we have is, I chose 1 pound of carrots and 1 pound of broccoli. And the broccoli that I actually chose is frozen broccoli. Now, the reason why I chose frozen broccoli is because it's easier. I guess I could have taken frozen carrots also, but now we have diversity in our video so that whichever one that you choose, you can either or.
See, we're all about cutting corners here at ManggFood.
Yeah. So if you want to use the fresh vegetables, if you are a purist and you want to only use fresh vegetables, then go for it. Now, actually, what I'm going to do these is I'm not going to cook these in the microwave. Why? Because I don't want soggy vegetables. This is steaming vegetables. If I steam this, it would be soggy. So what I'm going to actually do is I actually let them thaw a little bit. I took them out right when I started cooking, and I'm going to just take these, and I'm going to throw these in at the same time as the carrots. So if you had a big enough bowl, we should be able to do this. We can do this.
Just pack it in there.
Pack it. Look at that. Pack it. Yeah, okay. Get in there. No. No. Okay.
There you go.
We lost one piece, but that's okay. So there it is. This is your bowl of vegetables. It's a lot of vegetables for 4 people, but you know what? I'd like to consider this more of a healthy meal then.
Okay. Now you could add more vegetables to this dish you just added.
Oh yeah,
you mentioned water chestnuts.
You could add water chestnuts. You could even add onions if you're a big onion person. You could add onions. I mean,
peppers.
Yeah, peppers. Whatever floats your boat for vegetables.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to show you the bourbon sauce cooking. Now, as you can see, it looks like it's cooking very well. It's not. It doesn't look like it's boiling or burning or anything like that. This is good. You do want it to bubble up a little bit. So what I did was I raised it up to between 6 and 7 on the heat, and I think that'll help it cook a little bit faster. But you know what? If you had started this at the start, then it's going to be. You're just going to let that cook for the entire time. Now, as you can look for the chicken here, you can see that I gave them a really good sear. And the reason why I wanted a good sear was because I like my chicken more of like a grilled flavor. But since we're sauteing them and frying them, it's going to have a little bit more of a crisp flavor. I don't want soggy chicken.
Yes, as you may have heard, we do not like soggy food here at ManggFood.
Alright, here we have it. I turned up the heat a little bit, and as you can see, there it is. It's starting to boil a little bit. That's good. You want a little bit of this, not too much. So again, I'm going to turn it down just below 6. You're going to want to watch, the sauce is really, I can't stress it enough, it's the most important thing. Don't mess up the sauce. Don't cook off the alcohol, and don't nuke the entire thing so that it's just boiling over. Okay, you want to keep it a very strong, constant simmer. So really play with the depending on how big your saucepan is, play with it. Okay.
Yes, folks. Rule number 1 of cooking: don't mess up.
Okay, so what I did was I wanted to see if the chicken is done. So I took off the largest piece, and an emphasis on the largest piece. If you take off the smallest piece and, oh, look, it's done, you could be pulling off the largest piece and then it's raw. So don't do that. So I'm just going to cut into the absolute middle, and look at that. Absolute perfection. That is done. So now your chicken, once you're done with your chicken, you can take it off and you can put it over to the side. Okay, so now that I've taken the chicken off, I'm going to let it rest. Okay, so you're just going to fork it over here, put it.
Right. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't tend to do, but they really should when they're cooking just about any type of meat, really. Whenever you finish cooking chicken, pork, steak, anything like that, you want to let it rest by either wrapping it in aluminum foil or putting like the lid of a pan on top of it, so it can kind of just trap the heat in there and finish cooking. And what this is going to do is really going to trap in the juices. Because as you saw when he first cut into the chicken, a lot of juice ran out of it. And so if you eat it right off of the pan or right off the grill or what have you, most of the juice is going to end up on the plate instead of in the actual meat. And there's a lot of flavor there, and it makes the entire piece of meat a lot more juicy. And so it's a good tip for any type of cooking.
So what we're going to do is, as you can see, I put one piece of tin foil down, aluminum foil, and I put the chicken inside, then I put another one over it, and then I just sealed it like this. Very simple, very easy. Let it rest for about 10 minutes. Okay, now that the chicken is done, I'm going to actually cook all the vegetables at once, and I'm going to saute them. So since there is no lid, I'm going to apply a little more oil. Okay, I think there was about a tablespoon left. I had added some. Like I had said, I started with 1 tablespoon, then I added 2 tablespoons more because I didn't want the chicken overcooking or cooking unevenly or just burning. Okay, so now that I have about 2 tablespoons of oil on there, I'm going to add all the vegetables at once. Just be very careful if it's really, really hot or the oil could splatter. Look at that. Okay, this is how it's going to look when it's done. It is, it's nice and thick. It's got a good color to it. It's not extremely runny. It's a beautiful consistency so that it will easily adhere. It's not going to make your bourbon slimy. It's actually going to stick to the meat. It's actually going to stick to the vegetables, and it's just going to have a delicious flavor.
You know, you just described that sauce in a way that could provide me with many jokes, but I don't think any of them are tasteful, so I'll leave them out.
You're very kind.
Alright, and that's that. Another delicious meal, another ManggFood episode. Thanks to my brother Lego for pretty much doing everything.
You know what? Thanks for having me. This was awesome. I hope you knew more of this.
Yes. Thanks to my good buddy Ziggy for volunteering his kitchen. As always, I am Mang, and remember, get busy eating or get busy dying. Peace out.